So I've been getting this question a lot about how God revealed to me who my husband was. And so I am here to tell you how he did it from start to finish, the full story. And so I I want to say, um, if many of y'all that know my testimony and many of you guys don't. And so um, I was dealing with homosexuality for 9 years. The last time that I ever dated a man was when I was 15 years old. I'm 24 now. And so, man, I absolutely love telling this story is because not only does it inspire people, I just absolutely love how God turned my life around, okay? And so I want to point out I did not want a man. I did not want a man to touch me, let alone even look at me. Okay. And so I didn't want to have anything to do with a man. And so, it started early on. And so when I was 12 years old, um, I ended up going to this church, right? I didn't want to go. And so I was really giving my mom hell about it, right? And so I was like, I don't want to go, I want to stay home. And she was like, no, it'll be fun. Let's go, act right. Those black mamas and stuff like that. And so went, and I'm so glad I did, because as soon as I walked in, I saw him um, messing with the microphones. And I walked in literally at 12 years old. I walked in and I was like, who is that? And it's like, as soon as I sat down, because other people were like coming to greet me, like, when you go to a new church, they greet you and stuff like that. And so I'm sitting here trying to look at him, and at 12 years old, I'm sitting here trying to look at him, and then other people like distracted me. And so when people finally, did their part, I looked at him again, and it's like, as soon as I looked at him, we ended up both locking eyes at each other. And then I heard God whisper. Even at 12 years old, God used to speak to me. And so, but I didn't know who it was. I just thought it was my own thoughts. I didn't quite understand what God's voice was yet. And so when we locked eyes, I heard God say, that is your husband. And then I kind of like made a face, because I'm like, why is my mind making up these thoughts? And then I got distracted. Like, I didn't understand at the time that God actually told me who my husband was at 12 years old. I didn't know. And so we kept staring at each other throughout the thing, right? And so a couple months later, we had this volleyball game, right? And so I think I was like 13 at the time, 14. No, I was 13. No. Yeah, I was 13. I have to remember. It's been so long ago. And so we had this volleyball team. Now, your girl was bold, okay? Your girl was bold. Even at 12 years old, 13 years old, I was bold. Like, if I liked something, I went for it. And so I told him to meet me in the car, right? I know, right? Wild. I told him to meet me in the car at 12 years old. And so I sat in the back seat, he sat in the front, and I was like, I think I like you. And he was like, I think I like you too. And I was like, can I get a kiss? And he was like, yeah, you can get a kiss. And so I kissed him, right? And I was like, oh. And then like I kissed him again. And so I was like, and he was like, do you want to be my girlfriend? And I was like, yeah, I do. It's so funny. Like, it's so funny how everything went down. And so we started dating, right? And so at the time, the church that we were at was preaching that we couldn't, it was very religious, and we couldn't have a boyfriend and girlfriend, right? But they were like leaving it at that. They wasn't going into detail of why, and stuff like that. And so we dated from 12 years old to 15 years old, right? He's actually the last man that I ever dated officially. And so, which is crazy, right? Full circle. And so we broke up at 15. I didn't want to. He didn't want to. But at that time, we were young. We were pressured. We were trying to please God, which it was the right heart posture at the time for a young teen. But, we didn't quite fully understand the way that we do now. And so we broke up at 15, right? But he didn't never leave me alone. Like, he couldn't leave me alone. And so after that, we kept like sneaking around, talking, and stuff like that. You know, basically we hid our relationship from everyone. And so, you know, around that time, 15 years old came around, right? And so at the time, it's like I started to understand why why certain stuff happened to me, or, you know, I was basically growing up. And so I started to like, you know, I started to like women at the age of 15. Like, I been knew I liked it women, but I actually like came out that I liked it women at 15 years old. And so you know, one day I he tried to get back together with me, and I was like, no, I'm dealing with my own stuff. I can't handle a relationship right now. And he was like, okay. He was like, I'll wait for you. And I was like, no, you don't have to wait for me. Like, because in my mind, I knew that I was never getting back together with him. And so, but he was like, oh, I'm going to wait for you. And so I was like, no, you don't have to wait for me, okay? Let's just part ways. If something, and you know, the day that we actually broke up, I actually told him, I was like, God is going to bring us back together. I don't know when and I don't know how, but I truly believe that. And at the time, I didn't even know what I was saying, right? It was just something, it was like my Holy Spirit was talking to me at that time, letting us both know that, hey, we're going to come back together at a later time. I don't know when and I don't know how. And so we kept in touch with each other. We were in separate relationships. He was in his. And so, but we always kept in contact with each other. Even if it was like a simple, hey, how you doing? How's the family? You know, and stuff like that. We never went like a long period of time without checking up on each other, right? And so, you know, was in a relationship with women for like 9 years, right? And so, and he got in his and was in his relationships and things of that nature. And so when I gave my life back over to God in 2022, because God been tugging on me, I was the type, I was running away from God, right? And so I didn't want to answer my calling, you know, because of how I grew up. You know, I grew up very religious. And so I didn't understand what it meant to have an actual relationship with God. And so after I got done doing basically what I wanted to do, and stuff like that, in 2022, I was like, you know what? I don't want to live this life anymore. I'm not happy. And you know, throughout those years, I knew that I was with counterfeits. I knew that the people that I was associating myself with wasn't my husband, you know, and stuff like that. Wasn't the person that God wanted me to be with. I could feel that. And so, but I just ignored it. And so during those years, God would tug on my heart and be like, hey, I miss you. You know, I'm here if you need me. I would love to have you back, you know, and stuff like that. He would just put like little thoughts in my mind and let me know that he missed me. And so it finally happened in 2022 when I surrendered my life back to God. And when I surrendered my life, I remember standing outside and I was like, I said, Lord, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I said, I want to actually see what you have for me. I said, I know this journey is going to be hard and long, but I'm not going to give up, and I need you. And I was like, I said, you bring me who you want me to be with. Now, at the time, I did not know, because it'd been so long since I actually thought of that memory of me meeting him at the church for the first time at 12 years old, and God telling me that. Like, that wasn't in my mind when I was praying that. And so during that time, right, when I prayed that prayer outside in 2022, I was like, Lord, you bring me who you wanted me to be with. And so for a whole year, God did not reveal to me who it was. And I'm like, I know God heard me. I'm like, and so it was a lot of frustration. It was a lot of, I wasn't mad at God. I just didn't understand why he was silent at the time. Like, that was my first time ever like experiencing silence from God. And so I didn't understand why he was doing that, but now I do. And so the reason why he was silent and didn't answer me, right, was because he wanted me to not only heal from the relationship that I just got out of, he wanted me to spend time with him, like one-on-one, and him actually teach me the things that I know now. And so I didn't understand it at the time, and I'm like, God, why won't anybody love me the way that I want? You know, do you have anybody out there for me? And it's like I would cry endless nights over and over and over again, and you know, God would comfort me and stuff like that. But again, I still didn't understand why he was quiet on me for a whole year. And so at the beginning of, let me see, at the beginning of 2023, it's like he reached out to me, and he was like, you know, I just want to start over with you again. And I was like, at that time I was still dealing with my past. Like I was still dealing with um exes at the time. And so I wasn't really ready to get in a relationship with a man. And so I was like, we can be friends and we can talk. That's it. Like we've been doing. Like we can continue checking up on each other. And it's like at that time we were both running away from our calling still. Even though I said that to God, stuff doesn't happen overnight. And so we were both still running away. We were both, you know, I was freshly transforming into who I am today. And so, but I thank God for every single season that I went through. And so, you know, but the communication opened. But again, at the time, I didn't know um, if he was my husband. Like, this was my mindset. Like, again, I wasn't thinking about him being my husband. I actually totally forgot about that memory, right? It was like buried deep in my memory. And so we were just talking as friends, not knowing that, you know. And so we started back talking again, like fully, and like having full blown on conversations. And he was telling me that he still loved me, um, and that, you know, he wants to carry out the plans that he set for us when we were teenagers. And so I'm sitting here still looking at him like, I don't want to, you know, and stuff like that. And so kept praying, and then God finally answered me on January 30th, 2024 last year. And so, you know, because again, I was still praying, like I didn't want anyone from my past, right? I wanted to move on because of the hurt that I experienced. So I didn't want to repeat history, if that makes sense. And so he revealed to me who it was. But before I say that, right? He led me to go on a 3-day Esther fast 3 days before January 30th. So calculated, okay? And so went on the fast, right? I'm still praying out to God, who is my husband? Who is my husband? You know, you telling everybody else, but you're not telling me. You know, I've been obedient, you know, and stuff like that. Like I was just spilling all that kind of stuff out, right? And so later that night, God revealed to me who my husband was in a dream. He gave me 2 dreams, okay? And so he showed me him, my partner. He showed me him proposing to me with a ring and tying like a bow on my left hand. And so when I woke up that next morning on January 30th, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? And so it just like everything that memory of us meeting in church and God speaking to me for the first time, excuse me, God speaking to me for the first time, it's like God brought that back to my memory on that day. And it's like my eyes shot up like this. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? I knew it. I was like, I knew it, Lord. I knew it. And so I'm sitting here shocked. Okay, I couldn't even move. And I was like, God, are you sure? And he was like, yes. And I was like, okay, well, I need confirmation. Like, I don't want to go. I said, I'm going crazy right now. I don't want to just sit here and think, let this be my thoughts. I said, I need a confirmation. And so I said in my head, because I didn't know if the enemy was around me, right? I said in my head, I said, show me 3 blue cards if he's my husband. And so I went back to sleep, right? And because it wasn't time for me to get up yet. And so I went on my daily walk, exercising. And so I'm walking, right? And I'm just minding my business. Guys, when I tell you 3 blue cars back to back showed up, I have never seen that on the road. And I was like, no freaking way. And at the time, they had an event going on that I was walking to, right? And so I said in my mind, I was still shocked. And I said in my mind again, I was like, no, and I was like, I can't, it's like, I didn't want to believe it and I didn't want to trust it because of who it was. And so, I was like, okay, Lord, well, show me a bright orange car. I said, I'm gonna make it harder for you. Right. And so walked to the event, didn't see nothing. Right. And I was like, he didn't hear me. He's not going to tell me. And so was walking back to the house. Right. And I'm sitting here, listening to my music, minding my business. I happened to look down, right? And I looked up and a bright orange car pulled out in front of me. There was no one on the road, right? Pulled out in front of me. I just so happened to look up at the same time that this bright orange car that I asked for was pulling out in front of me. And I was like, and I just fell to my knees and I began to cry because I'm like, God heard me. Like, is this finally it? After a year of him being silent. And so I just began to cry, like, to where I didn't care who was around. Like, people were like looking at me and was like, are you okay, ma'am? And I'm like, yeah, I'm praising God. And they was like, oh, okay, and stuff like that. And so I was like, are you freaking kidding me? And so like 2 days, no, actually that same night, right? I guess he's been dealing with my husband as well about revealing to him who his wife was, which was me. And so he called me that night and he was like, man, the Lord's been dealing with me heavy about you. I really want to start this thing over and just put God in the center of our relationship and let's do it right. Like, I still love you. I know you still love me. Let's just go all in. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay. And so, time went on and we started dating. And so we started dating. And so 2 days after he revealed to me who my husband was, I'm still going crazy in my mind, like, nah, this man ain't it. Because again, it's like when you pray for something so long, you actually forgot that you prayed about it. It's like when God finally answers you, it's like you begin to reject it for some reason. And stuff like that. Ain't that funny how we pray for something for so long and then when God gives it to us, we reject it. And so, because again, I really did not want anybody from my past because of the past relationships that I've been in. Like, I was still healing at the time and I just didn't want to self-sabotage and what I was about to say, and get hurt all over again. It was no hate towards him. Like, he has never hurted me in any form type of way, okay? And so I just didn't want to get hurt because I knew how crazy I was at the time. I was still healing. And so and like I had a conversation with him about it and he was like, you don't scare me. That's what he told me. He said, you don't scare me. He says, I'm gonna love you through all of that. And I'm just like, I've never had anybody tell me that, recently during that time. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, wow. He was so patient with me. Even though we were both still fresh in our walk with Christ again, it's like he was patient with me. He was showing me the fruits of the Spirit. And he was actually putting action behind it. And so that's how it's like God confirmed it again. Like, yes, this is your husband. And so, because people used to talk to me crazy in my relationships when I used to put my relationships into my own hands. People used to talk to me crazy, and I used to talk back to them crazy, because you're not going to talk to me like that. It's like he didn't do that. He spoke to me in a soft tone. He spoke to me the way God spoke to me. And that was another confirmation that the Lord gave me, that he was my husband. And so, oh, I forgot another part. And so, during that fast, right? On the very first day, the Lord told me to write down my wedding and how I wanted it to go. And then he told me to write down characteristics that I wanted to see in my husband. And I was like, okay, God, that's what I'm gonna do. And so I wrote down a list, both of the lists, right? And I prayed over it. And then again, on the 30th, God revealed to me who my husband was. And then backtrack. I'm sorry, guys. Backtrack, right? Because stuff is coming up in my head just now that I forgot that it happened. And so backtrack way before all of this happened, and I was praying for a husband. I was watching TV one day, right? I was watching Vampire Diaries at the time, actually. And so the Lord was like, you're about to be in a relationship in 6 months, from last year. And so I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, okay, you're kidding, right? And he was like, I'm serious, watch. And so fast forward, I ended up being in a relationship in the next 6 months. And so yeah, I forgot about that part. And so the rest is history. We're dating, recording now, and whatever you want to call it, and everything is going good. And it's peaceful. It's very peaceful. That's the one thing that it stood out to me. It's very peaceful, and that's how I know it's from God. I wasn't confused, because God is not the author of God is not the author of the confusion. And so it's still peaceful to this day, and we're just growing, we're just learning still. And we're getting closer, not only to God, but to each other and ourselves. And it's just been an amazing journey, and I thank God for turning my life around, because I knew how strong I was about not wanting a husband. And so the fact that God can change me, change my desires and how the way I think, and change my perspective, he can do it for you as well. And if he can do it for me, he can do it for you as well. But again, the rest is history, and I think it's a beautiful story about how, because I used to think that, why everybody married before me, my friends are married, my family, my siblings are married. Why am I the only one that's last? I'm already the baby of the family, so why am I the last one? It's like, does anybody want to love me? And so the fact that God reminded me that I had my husband in my life all along, I just didn't know because it wasn't time yet. It did something to me, right? And it made me feel so much love. And so, man, he's the most amazing man that I have ever met. And again, I thank God for him. I thank God because he truly pushes me towards God. And that's another confirmation of how I knew he was from God. And stuff like that, because he really pushes me towards God. Even back then when we were teenagers, he was pushing me towards God. And so it was just, but God had to separate us. He wanted me to say this. God had to separate us to form our own true individual relationship with him before he could bring us back together. And so, but again, we were both running. And so it took 9 years for that to happen. But I'm glad now. I understand why it took 9 years. I'm glad because the old me, yeah, absolutely not. And that's what I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it at that. And so, but that's the full story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly love my story. And God is gonna do it for you. God has not forgotten about you. And stuff like that. So that is all I have for you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.